And welcome back to another True North Microlearning. My name is Mark Jeeves. Today we're going to be looking at transforming features within a sketch. So let's get started. So I've got what looks like a gear tooth here. We've got some internal constraints. We've got some external constraints back to V and H. We have a symmetry constraint in here that's ensuring that these two elements are always symmetrical to each other about V. And we're going to see what effect some of these constraints have on the transformation features or operations that we have. So let's start off with mirror. So to mirror something, I need a line to represent the mirroring plane. We're going to select everything in here. Let's not pick the V and H though. And we're going to go to mirror and pick the element about what I want to mirror against. So we can now see that it's mirroring that feature. And to fully constrain this, I have to define where my mirroring plane is in respect to V. So now it's all green and we're all good. Let's undo that one. Let's do the next one, which is symmetry. So we're going to take these elements again and we're going to make them symmetrical about this line. Now it did delete some of my dimensions because V is no longer available for those dimensions. So we did lose some of them. Now it didn't keep the original, it just symmetried our profile about the line. If I was going to be doing that, maybe I would instead, I'd maybe change that from driving to driven, from driving to driven. No, from driven to driving, whichever. Reference dimension, that's probably a better way of saying it. And then try to move this around, but it looks like my symmetrical constraint there is going to cause me problems. So again, if you remember back to the original Sketcher, I always said never draw your profiles in respect to V and H initially, draw them away from V and H, and then you get a little bit more freedom, and you can always constrain them back to V and H at the end. So it's a good lesson there. Okay, let's look at the next one. So translate. Let's go to translate. We get a few more options in here. I'm going to turn duplicate off for a second, and we should see a similar sort of behavior. So we're going to select all the elements. We need to define where I'm going to start my translation from. And then I need to define in which vector and how long my translation is. So we can come into this window over here. We can say 50, enter. And now that's going to lock in that dimension, but we do have to finish defining the vector. So again, it did translate that. It didn't duplicate because we had the duplicate option turned off, but we did lose some of our constraints because we pulled it away from V. Let's undo that again. Let's go back to translate. Let's duplicate this time. Let's turn all of these keep constraints modes off and see what happens. So we're going to take our element. I'm not going to define offset, I'm just going to duplicate it 3 times. So we got primarily our profile, but we lost our tangencies, our radii, and so on because we didn't turn on any of those options. So let's turn on internal constraints. So we're going to keep the internal constraints this time. And again, let's give it a start point, end point, and we did get all of the internals. So we got all of the tangencies, the radius, the 15, anything that was external to the profile, i.e. going to V or H, we lost. So there's our replicated features, and we'd have to go add those extra constraints back in again. Let's do it with the external turned on. Let's see how well this does it. So again, I'm expecting to lose at least my symmetry, and we got a whole bunch of reference dimensions in here, and we got the original dimensions, but all of these other reference ones we'd have to convert from reference to driving in order to, and that's a nice easy thing to do, but we still have this as a reference dimension, so we'd have to convert this to driving, and we're still missing our angles back to V, so we'd have to go put oh no, there's our angle, but we are still missing the symmetry, unfortunately. So if I wanted to successfully pattern this out essentially by doing the transform and with the duplicate mode turned on, I'd need to remove some of the dependencies on V in order to get that to work, namely this symmetrical constraint. So let's do that real quick. Let's see how that works. So we're going to get rid of our symmetrical constraint here. So we have to make this symmetrical about something. But what I can do is I'm going to go from that center point to that center point. I'll make this move a little bit, make that construction element. And then we're going to say this element, and my V are going to be symmetrical. Now my 4, we could move that to being an internal now. So we're going to put the 4 inside to our new center line. And then I'm going to make this one coincident to that V. So I guess it's back to where we were. So slightly different constraint network. But it does mean we should get a better result. We are going to lose this coincidence to V though. So what might be a better solution is if we turn that to a dimension. So let's go find that coincidence constraint, right click on it, change it to a dimension. So now it's 0. And if we take all of that, translate it, start and end, we should end up with a better result. We're still getting a lot of these dimensions that external dimensions that are reference. So let's look at the last option. And this last option, keep original mode, it seems to ensure that if the original dimension is reference or driving, it's going to keep that original mode. So now we can select our origin, we'll pull this out. And now you can see we've got a nice fully constrained shape. We do have way too many constraints in here, so we would probably end up coming in, cleaning some of this up. I'm not quite sure why they went purple, very strange. They should be white. That seems like a bug to me. Let's exit the sketch and go back into the sketch. Definitely some weird bug. I'm not quite sure why it's done that. Let's undo that, because we shouldn't, if they're over constrained, having an additional constraint on there should definitely still be over constrained. So very odd behavior. Let's undo all of that. But you can see the approach was much better this time. Let's look at the next one, which is rotate. So again, we want to pick everything that we want to rotate, pick a center of rotation. We're going to have 9 at 22 degrees. We're going to hit enter to enter that in and hit OK. I'll select on screen to OK that, and we get all of our dimensions. And again, we're going to have to do a lot of cleanup in order to make this work for us. Let's undo that. So we have the same functionality. We have internal, external, we have original mode. You saw that was turned off in the rotate for the first time, so we have to turn it on ourselves. Again, I probably wouldn't do it this way if I was going to be completely honest with you. What I would probably do is exit my sketch. I'd pad my first feature out, allowing it to go into the part body. And, oh, I got 2 of them. Let's delete that there. And then what I would do is I'd go to my circular pattern, pick on my XY plane for my reference element or a center line. This works because it just defaults to an axis that's normal to XY through the origin point. We could then say complete crown, 22 instances, and we're going to get all of my gear teeth. That's probably the way that I would do that. Okay, let's go back to the sketch. Let's look at scale. So we can choose to take this. Let's turn duplicate on. We'll pick a position or an origin for the scaling. So we can scale down in size, we can scale up in size. And again, if we come into this panel and hit to enter, we're going to get a fully constrained feature. So let's undo that. So scale. And again, we can choose whether we want to duplicate, whether we want to keep which constraints, internal, external, or original mode. Just like rotate and translate. And then we also have offset. So offset has a series of modes. So let's pick this element here. So this is just singular element. I can choose to offset both sides if I want to. And then if we turn it off, we can tell it how many instances I'm going to have. So let's turn it off. Let's look at another offset. So we could also say tangent propagation. So with tangent propagation, since I have these radii at the top, zoom in a little bit, it's going to tangent chain round until we get to this hard corner. Now, if I want to do everything, I'm going to set it to point propagation, and now I get the bottom line included into that profile as well. And again, if we wanted to, we could tell it how many instances that we want in the duplication. And if we wanted, we could go both directions simultaneously inside and out. Now, inside, if we go any larger in offset than the radius, we're going to lose that radii, but it will trim that to a hard corner. Okay, that's all of the transformation features inside of Sketch. I hope you enjoyed today's class. I look forward to talking to you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.